Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar event. My name is Joshua and I'm going to be your presenter today. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. It is promptly 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to get started on our topic. We're here to talk about entering and paying bills in church windows accounting today. It's a beefy topic, folks. We're going to work together for the next 20 minutes or so till about 20 minutes after the hour. I'm going to try to wrap up the topic in 20 minutes or less. This may run long. It's, again, a really long topic. It's tough to squeeze in. We're actually going to be probably moving through it pretty quickly. But a couple things before we get started on that. We are recording today's webinar event, so there will be a video available on our website under the Support Center sometime in the next few days or so, maybe even as soon as tomorrow. There is already information out on the website on similar type topics or information. We are using our Accounting 103 or A103 workbooks, pages 16 through 33 is our topic today. If you don't have the workbooks, we do actually have a document that we've just put out on the website in the past, just earlier this week, yesterday, today, what have you, on entering and paying bills. So if we go to here and we click in search and type in enter bills. Right here we have enter and pay bills and print checks. This is again version 18, but there's a video out here on, I think it was released last year on this very same topic, but the document that I'm referring to is right here, the viewer print PDF file. Either the workbook or the workbook pages or this document are basically covering what I'm discussing today. This document is different because it stresses the importance of both the enter bills and the pay bills processes or transactions in church windows. And we're going to talk more about that here shortly. If you have questions, please type those into the questions portion of the webinar for me. I'll do my best to keep an eye on those. And I'll repeat those for everyone's benefit. If I may not be able to get to questions right away. If not, I'll get to those at the end of the event. Thank you for attending in advance. If you have to leave, by all means choose the file, exit, or leave webinar option on that control panel. Okay? All right, so the reason why we felt it was important to at least cover this topic, and certainly in one webinar event, was because even though it is going to be kind of squeezed in and it's going to be really raced through pretty quickly, is 9.5 times out of 10, 95 times out of 100, folks, you have to both enter the bill and pay it. As a double entry, balanced debit and credit fund accounting system, we have to do the enter bills to debit your expense account and credit the vendor that we're paying, and then we go to pay bills to debit the vendor account to clear out that account balance and credit our cash account. So again, 95 times out of 100, you're going to be starting with the enter bills process as step 1, and then you're going to be paying the bill as part of step 2. Okay? You have to do both. If we don't do both of those transactions, we are only affecting half of the accounts that generally we're wanting to affect on our chart of accounts, and we're going to be putting a balance under our accounts payable vendor liability account on our balance sheet that will never get cleared out. It's always going to continue to accumulate a balance. When we enter and pay our bills properly, that accounts payable liability account on our balance sheet is 0. Okay? So let's kind of go into enter bills and let's start there. Okay? So we go to enter bills, and you can access it by either here under the main portal screen, or we can go up to transactions in the top left, and we can go to enter and pay bills up there in the upper left corner. So we're going to go to enter bills in the middle. As with every transaction in church windows, it starts with entering a date. We then choose our vendor that we're going to be paying. So let's say we're going to be entering our electric bill today. We choose the payee or the vendor. We can enter some comments here if we wish. Then I would come down and notice where it says expense/income account right here. Okay, if we don't enter this, we're not charging our expense account for our treasurer's report and perhaps not affecting our budget. So here we click in here and we type in electric and we choose electric. So this would be the church's electric bill, and we're going to say that that was, $756.89. I can type in some line item comments if I wish. If I have what's called a multi-lined bill, I can do that. So if I click done with my electric bill here, and let's say a common example of a multi-line bill would be something like our credit card bill. Okay, so if I type in Visa and I type in Chase Bank Visa, there I'm choosing again, my vendor that I'm paying, again, paying attention to the date of the bill. I would choose my expense account. So let's say we put in a purchase for our bulletins on our credit card for this month, and then we tab over or click the plus sign on the right end of the line. It moves down, and then we're going to say we made some purchases for our senior citizens on our credit card bill. And I can go ahead and enter comments for this if I wish. But what this is doing, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. It is accumulating a total right here in my bill that I'm posting for, in this case, May 18th. Okay? If so, again, I can just continue adding to this bill until, my Visa credit card bill is paid or entered. Okay? Or if I want to enter different expenses for Visa on different days, I would say, okay, I'm done with my Visa entry for May 18th, go done, add to batch, then go back up and choose a different date, reselecting the same vendor, okay? And again, choosing my whatever expense accounts. Okay, so we're going to say we purchase some music material also on our Chase Bank Visa account, and click it, then done, add to batch. So one of the questions I'm being asked is, what is the difference of transaction comments and line item comments? That's a great question. These transaction comments right up here at the top, this is what they're asking, is these are comments that are common and can be viewed on any portion or any account that's involved in the transaction, folks. However, if I enter the line item comments, those comments are only available to review when I'm running it for the specific expense account that I've recorded them against. They can't be seen when I'm running the transactions, when I'm running reports for other accounts involved in the entry. Good question. So, I've entered my two bills here now, three technically, but technically two vendors. And now I'm ready to pay those bills, okay? So if I'm ready to, now again, this is where things get to be folks get a little bit confused by this, is, well, haven't I recorded my payment? No, you've only recorded half of them. Well, again, there's two accounts involved with every single transaction, folks. So the bill, again, debits an expense account and credits the vendor, debit and credit. And then my payment, which we're coming to in a minute, is going to debit my vendor account to clear out that vendor balance and credit my cash account to record for my payment. Okay? So technically, there's a debit and a credit for the bill and a debit and a credit for the payment. So it appears many times as though we're duplicating those, but we're not. Okay? I recommend saving the batch whenever possible. If I've got a large batch of bills, I recommend saving it. It says batch was saved successfully. I could technically close all the way out of church windows and relaunch it, come back into enter bills, and it's going to pick me up right where I left off. Right there they are. In essence, what church windows is it's a payable or an accrual accounting system that we can treat like cash. So what I mean by that is, if I want to post these bills today and then come back in and pay them tomorrow, next week, next month, I can choose just post. But many times, many users are working on a cash basis where we're not going to enter our bills that we're not going to be willing to turn around and pay immediately, which is then where the button down here in the bottom right labeled Post and Pay These Bills comes into play. Okay? So many of you probably are working on and living on a cash basis. So if that's the case, you're going to turn around and click Post and Pay These Bills. Okay? Which is what we're going to do. When we click Post and Pay, it pops up and asks us, do we want to print a listing or a report of all the bill transactions that we've just posted? So again, I want to make sure I'm going to click yes on this time because I want to stress the importance and the difference between them when we look at those is, now when I click Print, and it brings up what's called my bill posting report. So right here, let me zoom in a little bit on that. It says, bills posted on 5/18. Okay? That's the date that I'm sitting at the computer when I'm posting these bill transactions. Okay? So again, one of the things I want to show is now that I've entered my bills, and here's my pay bills, and we'll come back to that in just a moment, I want to go up and I want to look at the balance sheet, and I want to show you what's happening here. So if we run it through month May 2017 and we click print, notice here under our liabilities, let me zoom in, meant to zoom in on that. Right here under accounts payable, we've got a balance right here. I mean, granted, there's other things in here too, but I'm just saying there's a balance in our year-to-date column under accounts payable under our year-to-date, which includes those bills that we've paid today. So if we don't record those payments, this balance is just going to accumulate a positive balance in it forever, in perpetuity, until we record the payments. Okay? This is a ledger account. We're not seeing the actual individual vendors. We would need to go to a different report for that. Right here is what I'm talking about, folks. Right here. Okay? So, in order to be able to, so we're showing a 69.97 balance in there. Again, we've got some other things in there. So now when we go into back to pay bills, there's my pay bills. Here are the two bills that I've entered today. The one for my Chase Bank Visa for $258.68. When I click on that, it should reveal the bills. There they are. The one bill for the 202 and then another one for the other one for the 56.34. I would check any of those bills that I wanted to pay as part of this payment. And then starting on the left, entering my date occurred for the transaction, making sure the asset account is correct. We can set default asset accounts for these transactions, of course, if we wish. I can set a default payment method. We are going to be, if you're printing and producing computer-prepared checks each and every time, you're going to set your default payment method as computer check. But if I say, oh, well, I'm paying my American Electric Power bill online, I can click right there where it says computer check for AEP, click the down arrow, and I can change its payment method to any one line item in my payments batch to the appropriate payment method that supports how I'm actually paying that vendor. Okay? If you're still writing manual checks, you can choose your payment method as manual if you wish. Now, if I do that and I try to click post, it's going to bark at me because it's requiring that if I choose manual check as my payment method, that I have to enter those checks numbers right there and then before I post it. I'm not printing my checks from church windows. I'm handwriting them. Okay? So notice we see that red dot flashing right there, that red X that says check number required because manual check is selected. I always tell folks, put your cursor on that red X and it'll pop up with the floating help message and it'll tell you what it's needing on that. Okay? So I'm going to change it back to computer check. And now check number is not required, so it now goes away. But I'm not quite done with this window yet. There's a few other things I want to show you here. If I when entered my bills in the morning, and we're just going to discard this batch. So let's say I entered my bills, I posted them in the morning, and I'm coming back and I'm after lunch, and I'm come back from lunch and I'm ready to pay those bills. I could go back into pay bills, and what I'm here to look at is under the top, I've got the option labeled Quick Pay right up here at the top right here, okay? Everybody should be able to see that. It's a menu. So when I click on Quick Pay, it reveals a list of options. Bills entered today, which I'm going to come back to. View any vendor with a balance. So what that means is any vendor that has a balance, no matter how that balance was generated, whether it was through a bill or a journal entry or something that was transferred over from donations to pay out, maybe payroll taxes, any vendor that's carrying or liability that's carrying a balance is going to show up in my View Vendors with a balance. So when I look at that, we notice right here, we've got a number of vendors in here that have balances. Okay? Some of those may have outstanding bills. The way we want to look and see which of these are bills, we would probably want to then go to Quick Pay and view outstanding bills. And as we clearly see, we do have our Chase Visa, and it looks like we've got our AEP bill Well, it looks like we do have something carrying over there, but these are all the May bills. These balances are carried over from other previous periods or something. Much of it looks like it was the maybe some taxes or something else. Okay? But we're going to go back up to either one of these options, folks, are good. Just the bills that we're paying are going to be cleared by checking the select box and clicking Create Payments. Here I am back to where I was entering my bills, or paying my bills. So right here under Quick Pay, I could choose Bills Enter Today, and it's going to populate with these same bills that I have. Okay? If I had comments that I had over here, one of the things that's important is, and I point out to folks, is notice there's a little asterisk right here, transaction comments right here. That asterisk points us to a very important footnote that it says, comments will appear on the check stubs. Use insert to insert comments from bills. So if I did have some in there, I would then click on the insert, and it would pop in here, and it would show me any bills that had comments to paste over. I'm sorry, folks, I overlooked that. But if there were, I would then append those bill comments over to my payment. Then those comments will then appear on my check stub. Okay? So bill comments don't automatically appear on the check stub until you use this INS or insert button to then say, okay, I want to bring over those bill comments into the payments and have them appear on my stub. Okay? Let's say I didn't want to pay this $56 bill to Chase today. I could simply uncheck that bill right here. Notice right here in my Pay Now boxes, right here, Pay Now. If those aren't checked, basically what I'm saying is I don't want to pay that bill. I'm going to maybe put it off for another payment next month or what have you. If I want to produce separate checks to AEP, computer checks only, folks, this only works for computer prepared checks, not for any other types of payments, I would put a check mark over here on the right hand side in the boxes labeled separate payment. We added that a couple versions ago. We got a lot of folks that were calling us asking, wait a minute, I'm paying now, but I want to produce two separate checks when I'm printing those. When I go in to print my checks, I want to have two separate checks to Chase Bank Visa. Okay, well, the only way I can do that is by putting the check mark under separate payment. Well, and they have to be recorded as separate bills. So it is kind of a two-step process. I have to enter the bill, post it, and post them as separate bills there. Once they show up as separate invoices, then I can, and I'm choosing computer checks, then when I choose separate payment and I choose post and print checks, it is going to put two checks into the print queue to print to two different checks in my check stock. Okay. Again, I can save the batch, come back to it later. Batch was saved successfully. I strongly recommend this if you've got a lot of bills to pay or a lot of bills to enter and pay. I've had folks on support calls who called me and said, I was in the middle of entering my bills, Josh, and I had entered 25 bills, and then all of a sudden Church Windows crashed on me. Where's my bill batch? And the question I have to ask is, did at any point during the bill entry process, did you click Save Batch? If they said yes, then they would go back in and would pick them up at their last save point. If they didn't, the batch was not saved. You also, folks, have to get this dialog box that says batch was saved successfully. Again, now that I've saved that, I can close out. I can go back in to pay bills, and here's my batch of payments. Okay? Printing the batch beforehand, folks, can certainly be done, but it's not going to include the transaction numbers because the transaction numbers that I'm posting are not being generated until after I click post or post and print checks. So when I click post, so again, if you're wanting to print the checks tomorrow or next week, we're going to choose just post. But if I'm ready to print those checks, I'm going to click the post and print checks button here in the bottom right, which is what we're going to do. So once we click post, again, it asks me, do I want to print a report? And again, for the purposes of our event, we're going to click yes, and I'm going to click print. And I'm going to zoom in again, and I want to make sure, again, we're seeing very clearly at the top, it says payments posted. Okay? So again, Two different types of transactions are required now in order to be able to get those bills paid and affect all of our accounts properly. Okay? And then when I close out of my payments transactions, it should now immediately then open up my print checks, ready for me to print my checks. And as indicated, as I had requested under my pay bills screen, when I had put that separate payment, it's got one check in here for Chase Bank Visa for $56 and another one for the $202.34. Okay? I can now print to two separate checks and pop those in the mail and send those off, and Chase will receive two different checks from me. Okay? We're not going to go into any check printing, any details of check printing today. We've gone a few seconds over here. But again, I want to point out again when we go back to reports, financial and balance sheet. We run this through the month of May. We now notice that our year-to-date balance in our accounts payable account is now back down to the balance that we carried over from the prior month. Okay? So it's right over here. Sorry, here's accounts payable down here. Okay? So folks, you've got to pay attention to this. That's what I recommend a lot of times when I'm on my support calls is I say, if you're unsure about if you've entered and paid the bills properly, visit the balance sheet, make sure accounts payable shows 0, revisit it after you're done with your entering and paying bills, and make sure it's back to 0 again. If it hasn't and there's a balance in here, you've not done something correctly. Okay, so again, folks, we've gone a couple minutes over. I'm sorry about that. Again, we'll have a video out on the website on this, on the current version sometime soon. Let me see what questions we've got here to answer. Where do I find a menu to set the default payment method? Great question, Diane. If you go up to special functions here at the top and settings, right here you can set your default asset account for your payments or for your bill income and your payments, default payment method, etc. right there. And you simply choose that and click OK, and those pop in each and every time. Great question. Sometimes when I choose to pay bills, a vendor might show a balance that I already paid. What do I not do to clear this bill out correctly? Julie, that's a really great question, but unfortunately, that's really more of like a forensic accounting question. That's really something I'm going to have to ask you to put off to a support call for us. We need to have you sitting in front of the church windows so I can, forensically investigate that with you to find out how that balance got there. I mean, if it is a balance that's carried over from a prior accounting period and you simply need to clear it out and it's not an outstanding bill, you're simply looking at a journal entry to debit that vendor and credit that back over to back over to a fund of some kind. But please call us on support. We're happy to look at it with you. You're welcome. Does this payment method work with manual checks? With you're saying in terms of asking Christy in terms of default payment method? Sure, you can set a default payment as manual check. So now when I go into my pay bills window, my default payment method is manual check. Perhaps I'm misunderstanding that, but yes, whatever default payment you pay your bills using most frequently or enter your income to, not from donations, but definitely set that default payment method. You bet. Robert's asking, I'm very new to this process. Any recommendations? Yeah, I think so. I mean, Robert, I think again that, I can recommend using the resources that we have at the website. I think again, this event today and watching the movie again to ensure that you're entering and paying your bills is completed properly is a really good place to start. Again, folks, the document that I showed you on the website, the PDF file that we put out there we've written that up separate from the workbooks because again, we've seen, we put out there what we're hearing through support, and what we hear a lot of times through support is folks are either entering their bills and not paying them, or they're paying them but they're not entering them, and so again, they're only recording half of the necessary transactions and impacting half of their accounts. So, utilize the resources, on the website. Use the support center. Use the help files in the software. Call us on support. We're nice folks. We really are. Can you quickly review the difference between transaction comments and the line item comments? Sure. I mean, again, so when the comments that are line item comments is what I'm saying is that when I'm going in and recording, say, my Columbia gas bill, and I come down here and I go, gas, when I choose gas, and I'm entering those comments over here on the right side, I'm going to be putting in church gas bill. Those comments will only appear or be available to appear generally when I'm running my report for my 510-360 account. I'm saying I only want those comments to be associated with that particular expense account. They won't appear when I run, say, my report for my vendor account for Columbia Gas, or if I have again another expense account here for my rental gas account. So if I pipe in rental gas and choose that, that church gas bill comments will not appear when I run my expense account report for 510-910 for my rental gas. Okay? They're very specific to that particular account, as opposed to the transaction comments, which I'm basically saying these comments under transaction comments are available to show whether I'm running it for any account involved in the entry. Columbia, my vendor account, my rental gas, or my church gas expense. And you have similar type options under enter income and enter bill, or under journal entries. All of those are it's the same types of differentiations. Can you enter more than one bill to different vendors and pay them later with manual checks? I'm sorry, Christy, I'm not sure I'm understanding that question. Yeah, I mean, again, as long as it's, I can enter a bill to a vendor. Again, all I can stress is my Chase Bank Visa as an example of that is, when I go up there, I'm going to enter a bill for Chase Bank Visa for May 18th, enter one vendor, choose my expense, enter the amount, done, add to batch. I can then enter a different date or the same date and enter another one for Chase. It's really, I have full control here. The question is, am I considering it one bill or am I considering it multiple bills? And of course, yeah, as long as they're entered with entered as separate bills, I can literally choose one bill or 20 bills at the pay bills window to pay whether I want to put them on one check or multiple checks. If paying bills from different bank accounts, would you pay each account separately, or do you do each bank account together? Well, again, I guess, Christy, over on our pay bills window, I can only choose one asset account here, but if I've got, again, 3 different bills or 2 different bills in this list that are going to be posted or paid out of different assets, I can certainly pay them out of different bank accounts here. I just can't pay one bill out of 2 bank accounts. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm hoping I'm understanding that question. But sure, if I go up here to view vendors with a balance and I go, okay, my city and state taxes, and I'm going to create payments for those, I can say, okay, my city county taxes are being paid out of my, money market account. So yeah, as long as, again, I can change the asset account here, but it is only going to pay that one payment out of that particular cash account. But again, folks, if I have manual checks and I need to write 2 different checks, I'm going to have to do post in between each of those because it isn't going to allow me to use the separate payment function on that. Great. Well, I'm glad. Sometimes those questions aren't always necessarily intuitive to me, so I appreciate it. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions coming in, folks. Great questions by everybody. Looks like we've had a lot of folks dart out already of the event. Again, we're going to have the video out on our website here shortly or soon, within the next couple to a few days on this. Please look for that for review later. We hope it's been helpful, and we hope to see you at another Church Windows webinar event. I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar for everybody. Thank you all. Take care. Bye-bye.